we are pleased to be joined now by the scouting director, the professional side, Zack Minasian. He's the most important guy in the organization right now as we approach the trade deadline. So I guess we should start this entire process by talking about all the things you can't talk about.
Exactly.
Right? You're pretty limited in your.
It's pretty much how it is this time of year, but that's all right.
You don't want to play your cards too
Exactly.
soon.
Exactly.
All right, we'll answer this. How many phone calls, emails? I mean, what's the business of Zack Minasian like right now as we approach July 31st?
It's pretty much nonstop. Usually, this is the first time I've lost my voice somewhat, and I don't know how long. So. It's a lot of talking to our scouts, other teams, pro directors, and then a lot of just relaying information to Doug, and Doug relaying information back to us, and we try and filter through it and which is important and which isn't, and work from there.
But tell us again, just for everybody so they can know your exact job. So there are two branches of the scouting department, the amateur side and then your side, which is the professional side, which means what?
So the amateur side oversees high school players, college players, junior college players. On the professional side, we oversee major league players, minor league players, and the independent leagues. So any player in affiliated baseball, I should know. Our scouts, our pro scouts should know, and we have to be able to give Doug, Gord, the rest of the front office, scouting reports and so on and so forth, information on any of those players.
Zack is the one who dispatches all of the Brewers pro scouts and sending them all over the country. And how do you keep that organized with where to send particular scouts to see particular players? I would imagine this is the year where they're in the minor leagues, right? They're seeing a lot of minor league players.
Absolutely. It's a very difficult process. I'm fortunate to have great help. Ben McDonough helps me in the office, and we have other people in the office. Tom Flanagan, Barb Stark do a lot of work with our pro staff and helping out and keeping things organized. The administrative part is so important. A lot of it with which teams to see is somewhat of a guessing game, and Doug and I sit often and try and figure out which teams may fit us better than others. And we need to make sure that not only we see their teams, their affiliated, their minor league clubs, that we see them more than once. So we have multiple opinions, and we can rely on our scouts to give the scouting side, the scouting viewpoint to make the best decision possible.
Now, you've been in this position with the Brewers now. This is your 5th year, right?
Yes.
I mean, how different is this year at this point in the year than in the past 4 that you've been in this spot?
It's very different. My perspective is I always try and prepare for the worst. The old John Wooden line about preparing, not preparing for failure and failing to prepare. So prepare for the worst. And I always think it's easier to go the other way when the team's playing well, and we're talking about major league players. So we always want to cover our bases with prospects and knowing which team's best prospects are who, and what our fits may be, what their fits may be. So it's different, somewhat similar to when we were trading Zack Greinke. So we've been through this process before, but we started much earlier given our start.
Zack Minasian joining us here in the booth. Urshela, the rookie, to center field for out number 1. Here's a great question. So, you know, a guy like Giovanni Urshela and a guy like Francisco Lindor, you know, these are new names, new faces for us as they come to the big leagues, but these are guys that you've known, you've seen, probably have some familiarity with.
Absolutely. I can sit back and close my eyes and think about watching Francisco Lindor when he was in high school in our draft room. Giovanni Urshela, you talk as these players come up. So it's definitely not a process that starts, I would say, 2 weeks before the deadline. It starts years and years before, constantly just building up more information, and I like to call it a database of players and what they can and can't do.
Let's make a hypothetical here. Now, let's just say a team has an interest in Carlos Gomez. Now, you go back, you know, to that team who has that interest. Are you looking for a particular, you know, area, you know, pitching, you know, outfield, infield, you know, a left-handed hitter, or is it just, you know, their best prospects in general?
I always I heard a line once about need is the worst evaluator. So my experience, I just want to get the most talented player.
That was well put, Zack.
No, we were kind of expecting the Marshawn Lynch from you today. I'm just here so I don't get fined, but you've been pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, we've lobbed you a few softballs. Now, what we have here is we have 2 things for you to use. Now, this is the Matt Garza, and this is the Bob Uecker. How many players will we be trading? More than 5, you can go with Garza. Less than 5, you can put the Bob Uecker out. No, just kidding. We wouldn't do that to him. His bosses are watching right now. But you guys do have a very important job right now. And, you know, my brother is a pro scout, and when your team's winning and you're trying to get pieces to get into a playoff run, you're usually in big league stadiums trying to find talent that you can add to your roster. And then when you're not, and when you're trying to maybe trade and you're a seller, then you're usually in the minor leagues, and that can get very difficult on your scouts and the travel. And how do you keep morale up with your team?
Absolutely. You try and keep in contact with them as much as you can. We had one scout I was just talking to the other day, and he's been home one night in the last, I think it was 48 days. So I think I'm going to get some hate mail from his fiance pretty soon here. But it is tough to do. And the thing that I like telling the scouts is that the other departments are depending on us to do our job.
Jason Kipnis lines one fair down the left field line. And he's on his way to second base with a double, 2-out double by one of the best hitters in the game, Jason Kipnis.
So there really hasn't been a whole lot of activity in all of baseball. I mean, there's 10 days left before the trading deadline. Do you anticipate a ratcheting up of activity and maybe some trades going on? Is everybody waiting for the first hammer to fall, the first trade to happen before everybody else gets going?
I anticipate action. I try to always anticipate it. I think as far as waiting for chips to fall, you have different levels of players. So say a number one starter may not have any effect on, say, a number 4 or 5. But those guys in those groups, those certain groups, may affect other players. So I think in some aspects it does, but maybe not a huge emphasis on one player getting traded versus another.
All right, give us a quick scout story now in case this inning ends right here. You know, maybe one from the past, one that you know about that would be interesting. Maybe fans didn't know all the back channeling that was going on with. It doesn't have to be our organization either. You spent some time in the Rangers organization as well.
I hope you told him you were going to ask that question before he came on.
But I know he can handle it.
There's so many possibilities that happen in trades, and I love going through the history of them. And I remember being in Texas, and at that point I was just a bat boy, a little kid working in the clubhouse, and we had Rangers that traded Alex Rodriguez and gotten Alfonso Soriano, and they had a list of 4 players to be named later, and they took Joaquin Arias, who was a shortstop. The Rangers didn't really have many shortstops in the system at the time, and they took a need player, and they passed on Robinson Cano.
Oh, good one, Zach.
That is good.
And right on cue, the inning ends. You're off the hot seat, my friend.
All right. Thanks, guys.
We'll be talking about you quite a bit here in the next couple of weeks. Thanks, Zach. Zack Minasian's been with us.